Hello, this is Dee Dee Connor again, and I want to welcome you back to the KSIS Infinite Campus end-of-year training. We are very pleased to be able to welcome Valerie Helm today from McCracken County Schools as a guest speaker, and she's going to go over Infinite Campus online registration and how they implement and use in their district. And as you know, KDE continues to supplement and pay for online registration through this year and next year. So keep this in mind, whether you're using it or not, that it is an option available to you. And Valerie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here to share our district perspective on online registration. Certainly, the great thing about online registration is that it can be customized. So this is how we did it. Others can definitely do it differently, but we wanted to share some of our experience. And just a little bit about us and our district. We're located in far western Kentucky in Paducah. We're known as Quilt City, USA, and home of the National Quilt Museum. Of course, the pandemic has put that to a halt the past couple of years, but we have 13 schools in our district. We have approximately 7,100 students, so we're not super large, but we're not small. We implemented the Infinite Campus as a Wave 1 district in 2007, 2008, so that means we were the first wave of districts after the pilots. So we've been working in campus for a while now. And we started using online registration in 2016. So we were using online registration before it was offered by KDE. So because we've been doing this for a while, we kind of have an interesting perspective. When we actually started, I think it was maybe still in a high-level beta. So lots has changed since we originally implemented, but we've found it to be greatly beneficial to our district and wanted to share our experience. So I have 16 years of experience in the SIS role and 19 years in our district total. The online registration has a lot of benefits. For us, the convenience was one, the fact that it can be completed at one time for all students in a family, even if the students attend different schools, and the fact that you can complete it for existing students via the campus parent logon. It streamlines your registration process for both schools and your parents and guardians, and the ability that you can use it for new and existing students reduces your paper. And we found that it made our back to school events more effective for our parents and our students. Getting started in the online registration process, our perspective was we wanted to focus on planning, customization, and the implementation of the online registration program. So our plan started with collaboration. It was very much a team effort. I'm our spokesperson, but our DPP was our team leader. And then there was another group of people that worked with us. I did the building and programming. We had someone, our DPP, who met with our school administrators and district level staff. And we had others that helped us with the addresses and the cleanup, and I'll elaborate more on that later. Also important to us was communication, cleaning up, customizing, and then the actual implementation itself. But those are kind of our target areas for getting started. The first thing for us was defining our timeline. We rapidly implemented online registration. I think we decided in December, we had the conversation with Infinite Campus about it, started the process, and then in a matter of months, we were live in using it. So it was really important to us that we picked a target date for that implementation, and then we stuck with it. Another key part was reviewing our registration processes, what our current process was for registration in our district. And in a review of that process, we realized that we needed to create some clearly defined information for our staff and our parents. So we created a flyer with all of our new student enrollment and registration requirements. We also created an email dedicated solely to registration questions. We also created a phone number for registration questions. We posted the flyer on our district website, and we also provided copies to our schools. We had copies at the front desk of the central office. We communicated clearly all the information on that flyer to make sure that our internal staff were clearly knew what the registration process was. The next step was we decided to create our implementation team, who was going to build and customize the program. We also decided it was important that that person have a dedicated time. Originally, in our original build, we dedicated 3 days per week for a specified time for this project. So I worked remotely where I had no distractions from email or phone or people walking in my office, just to strictly work on the programming of online registration. Now, for the annual updates, this maybe only takes a day or a half day, but I'm still allowed to take that time specifically to work on that process. Also, deciding what you want to include in online registration. What do you want this to look like? Are you wanting to include links? Are you wanting to upload documents? Do you want to basically mimic all of your current paper forms? Do you want to include your code of conduct or a link to your code of conduct? What about your board policies? So just really thinking in advance of what you're wanting to include is important in that original preparation process. And another key element for us was collaborating with other district and school administration and key staff to make sure that we were going to make online registration relevant for everyone in our district, all of the program areas. So some of the important areas that we collaborated and communicated with early on were our food service, technology, preschool, migrant, special ed, nurses, attendance clerks, guidance counselors, and that can be a really long list. There's even more, but those are some of the keys. This is what our new student enrollment flyer looks like. It is a 2-page front and back folder or flyer. We put all of our enrollment requirements on here just to make sure that everyone understands what's needed, the eye exam, the dental exam, any other kind of information. We also get a lot of questions on non-resident and change of school assignments. So we streamlined our process for that as well, and that's included on our flyer. We included our registration email and phone number. And for our registration email and phone number, that is manned. We try to, everyone gets a response within 24 hours, but most were same day. And we had a key staff member involved in answering those questions. Again, communication, I believe, was one of the key parts to our success. Communicating early with staff and parents regarding online registration, communicating what we knew when we knew it was very important. And also being very positive in your communications, regardless of what you might be experiencing in the implementation of online registration and getting it ready. It is very important that you be very positive in your public relations with your staff and with your families to make sure that it's successful. So we communicated what we knew as early as we could. So the first thing we did for parents was communicate our timeline for opening. We set a hard date for opening of online registration and created a save the date announcement. We also decided that we wanted to make sure every parent knew, although we've promoted since 2007, 2008, the importance of parent portal, now called Campus Parent, that they needed to use their portal or parent account to access online registration. So we also created a campus parent frequently asked questions flyer and informational flyer. We also wanted to make sure that parents understood that this was going to be more convenient for them. It's going to reduce the paper that they had to complete, streamline the process for those families who have multiple students in several schools in our district. It's not uncommon for us to have a parent have a student in elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school. So they can complete all of those registration forms in one location. It also makes the back to school nights and school events more effective for the parents and the students because you can tour the school, meet the teachers, they could focus on other things besides the paperwork. We use social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, to promote the information that we knew. We also used our district website and had our schools use their messaging systems, campus email messenger, and then any events that they had at that time also to promote the upcoming use of online registration. For our staff, we also wanted to have a definitive timeline for opening. And one of the early elements for us was providing a demonstration to our staff as early as possible. This was not training. This was simply a demonstration because we had, the fear of the unknown causes lots of issues, and sometimes it can cause people to be negative in the process. So creating an opportunity for them to see a demonstration of what it was going to look like for parents early on helped to calm the fears of a lot of our staff for the change, because change is really hard for people sometimes. So now our staff love online registration. Many of them say if we ever had to go back to paper, they would consider quitting because they love the fact of how it streamlined their processes. This is what our annual Save the Date online registration flyer looks like. We did this initially, but we also do this annually. We just give the date that we're planning to open. This is a prior year. We put some key information in here, reminding them that they have to use Campus Parent. We give them a link to Campus Parent. We also tell them how to access it through our district webpage. Tell them what to click on, what to look for when they're in Campus Parent. And we give some troubleshooting tips because that's a common issue, pop-up blockers, trying to use devices and tablets rather than, a computer can cause an issue. And sometimes even certain browsers can cause issues. How to use the forgot username and password option, just some different things. And we do this annually to, and now several years in, our parents have become trained and they know this information, and it's become even more effective. It was also important to us to focus on Campus Parent and the use because we knew that we might have an huge, massive request of resets and how do I get a parent account. So we wanted to have that whole process defined. So we decided again to communicate early about the Campus Parent account being needed, that we had already had in place an in-house support email for all Infinite Campus issues. So we wanted to make sure everyone had that information and knew how to contact us to get a reset of their account or to get an account created. Again, we like the flyers, so we created a Campus Parent informational flyer with some key information. I'll show you a sample of that in just a moment. We did turn on the auto reset feature for Campus portal that allows Campus Parent users to use the forgot username and forgot password buttons. This automates your process so that you can receive an email reminder of your username or a link to reset your password without having to, contact our dedicated support email. The issue with this is that you do have to have an account security email entered in your portal account. I'll elaborate on that a little bit more in just a moment. We sent district-wide emails to communicate to all of our staff how campus parent users could obtain and reset their username and password. We used user communication announcements within Infinite Campus, and also posted the information on our district website and social media. It was important to us to make sure that all of our staff knew how parents could reset or obtain an account, because often a parent will contact a teacher, and or you may have someone who's just at the front desk for a moment and they get the phone call. So we sent district-wide emails and district-wide information to make sure that everyone knew how they could help our parents obtain an account for their student or reset their account. The challenge that we faced with Campus Parent initially, our first year, was the fact that we were having to retrain people to actually use their portal account. Many people use the app and only use the app and never logged on their actual Campus Parent, account. So we had a little bit of an issue with that, because people would click on the forgot username and forgot password buttons and never receive the information, because they had never logged on their parent account to actually set up the account security email feature. So that is why we decided to do the Campus Parent flyer with a lot of frequently asked questions, promoting the Campus Parent account, telling what it could do versus the app, still how to contact us to obtain an account or reset if needed. And it is a 2-page flyer. And on the second page of the flyer, we focused on the account security email and how the auto reset would only work if they had entered an account security email and also updated. That's another issue that we have, is that parents change email accounts and they didn't update their account security email in their account settings. We also included some frequently asked questions regarding or information regarding the Campus mobile app, what the app does versus what Campus Parent does, and the fact that online registration cannot be completed on the mobile app. You have to log on to your account. So parents are much more used to using their Campus Parent account now, but we continue to promote the flyer and post this yearly. Another key step in online registration implementation is reviewing your existing census data, creating a plan for the cleanup of your data. We decided to involve our schools in the process. So we had work sessions where we used ad hocs for duplicate addresses and things like that. And we worked as a group. So all of our attendance clerks came over. We worked in a pre-pandemic, we worked in a room together so that we could all communicate and collaborate. And we used a lot of ad hocs that campus had already pre-built. We were able to pull those from Campus Community and copy them in. So I highly recommend that you use Campus Community as a resource for some pre-built queries. Some of the focus areas for cleaning up our data were duplicate households. We had duplicate households. We had addresses within those households that were inundated, but they weren't unchecked for mailing. We had duplicate people and we had duplicate addresses. Even though we had had lots of time and effort put into cleaning up our data from conversion to our prior system, because that prior system was self-contained for each school, so all your data for each school was separate. So we still had some duplicate data, and when it converted into the centralized census system. Online registration is wonderful because it does give you the ability to customize it to meet your needs. We decided to have our paper forms available when we were planning the build and the customization. So I basically had the paper forms of our what we wanted to include all available. I had a whole folder of everything. And the paper forms, we had decided in advance what links that we wanted to have available within our online registration. We thought about our naming conventions in our customization, because you want to make sure that that makes sense in your current build and when you're editing in subsequent years. You also need to determine if you need a custom tab. Do you need a custom tab because you want to be able to ad hoc on certain data elements that you've added and customized within online registration? What kind of adjustments do you need to make to the standard campus format, to the core product? There are areas and information that you can turn off. There are some areas that you may not be able to turn off. So if you have gone through your training and you've read through documentation and you're still not sure, I really encourage you to reach out to campus support, put in a ticket, ask the question. Don't get deep in your build and your customization and realize that something's not possible. So I really recommend that, and campus support was great to help us throughout this process. Test your work often as you're building. We built an area and then immediately tested it to make sure that it was going to work the way that we wanted. We had a core team of people that we could go in and build and then have them either look at a screenshot or log on and take a look to make sure that we had the proper content in our online registration. OLR settings is one of the first steps that you will take, setting your settings for what people are going to see when they log on to online registration. There are many settings. I'm just going to talk about a few and how we use them. We decided we wanted a minimum of 2 emergency contacts for our online registration. We also turn off and on the emancipated minor as needed. If we found that if we left this on, we had a couple of parents that ended up enrolling themselves, or not enrolling themselves, but putting themselves in online registration as an emancipated minor, and it created some confusion. So we decided to streamline our process to turn it off and on just as needed, because we don't have to use it that often and we have a process in place. Our schools call us, we make the proper adjustments, they complete the application, and then we turn it back off in our settings. OLR Boundary School is also something that we chose to use because we have tied all of our addresses to each appropriate school within our district. We also use Force Select Primary Address from campus, and that's because we did some customization with campus and working with our local 911 and PVA office to get create a spreadsheet with all of our addresses, and then had that imported in by Campus Data Services. So that was an add-on, but it was definitely worth that added cost to have them import the addresses for us. Registration option of disabled calendar for staff and health processing. This is something that we do choose to disable that calendar filter. We did try to turn it on at one point, and it created a lot of confusion because our schools process the applications. And since it is a family application that can have students in various schools, it created some additional confusion when we took off that disable feature. Census data is district-wide anyway. The people that were working on this already had census, so we just decided to disable that calendar filter so that they could see everything. This is one screenshot of what the OLR system settings looks like. You can see there are application options, emergency contact options. There are many more options than I mentioned. So you just have to figure out what it is that you want to do and what works best for your district. You also have posting and pulling options and registrar options. So again, we've used different ones. We have modified it as we go, and we will probably continue to modify as we go to make sure that everything fits our needs. Pleat Setup is your next step of the actual build. You can add pleats within the pleat setup area. You just need to think about the location of the pleat with the flow of your process. What kind of pleat do you need and where does it need to go? And again, thinking about the concise naming so that it's easily identifiable in your current and in future builds. And when you do additional programming in multi-language editor, you can see that you have naming conventions where you don't add spaces, and so it's just really important to think about that in advance, how you're going to do your setup. In the actual Olr Builder tab, again, we decided to replicate many of our paper forms pretty closely to what it looked like on the paper copy. It's now what it looks like on our online registration screen. So for us having those forms on hand, I basically took the form and mocked it up for how I wanted to make it look in online registration. So I would have the form in front of me and decide, okay, spacer here, this is a text box, this is a drop box. So I kind of mapped it out on paper. That's not necessary. That's just what worked for us with what we were trying to accomplish. So you do need to think about what kind of fields you need. Do you need a header, a text box, text area, a spacer? What pleat of online registration does this field you're creating need to go to? And again, being deliberate in your naming conventions for your fields is key, because you're going to need to be able to edit this potentially in future years, and you do have additional programming under System Admin Multi-Language Editor. You can create pleats, again, to match your paper forms. The programming of this was a little bit challenging at times for us, trying to figure out the spacing and the alignment, but it was definitely worth it in the aesthetic, the end result for us, and how it's worked for our district. We did choose to only use the electronic signature in our campus meal application. So for our online registration disclosures that we wanted parents to sign off on, we chose to use acknowledgement statements and check boxes and/or text boxes for the name and the date. I'll talk a little bit more about the campus meal application in some later slides, but some of our custom pleats that we added are, we did one for technology, electronic access, and internet survey. We did one for student directory information, publication consent, early childhood prior settings. We have one school that is peanut free. We have our visitor policy, required notice of terrorist threatening. We did a lot of customization, so this is just a short list of some of the areas. You can also edit and add to some of the core areas that are already in campus. So we added to the student tab, previous school pleat, some additional questions. We wanted to know if a student had been expelled or suspended. Were they under the supervision of juvenile justice? Had they ever been retained? What grade were they retained in? Did they previously attend in our district, so that we could check our centralized records to make sure if they answered yes that they did, what grade and what year. And that's important because we have lots of students that may attend preschool or kindergarten. They leave us, they go out of state, and then they come back in middle school or high school. So that helps us to know that we need to look for their previous permanent record when they were in our district, because those do, once a student withdraws, we do centralize those. This is what the customization of this pleat looks like. So if they answer yes that they attended a McCracken County school, then they get an additional drop box that lists all of our schools that they can select from, and then they put the year that they last attended. We did do some a pleat for food service and did a lot of customization. I'm going to spend a little extra time on this particular pleat because of we get lots of questions from other districts regarding this. And Originally, what we did is we had 2 third-party programs that we used for online meal applications. We had one program that we had a link to for community eligibility. We had another program that we had a link to for the National School Lunch Program for our non-CEP schools. We identified the schools. We had information within our online registration. We said, click here if you attend this set of schools, click here if you send this set of schools, and explained what CEP was for those CEP schools. The applications were completed by clicking on the link. It would take them, open another window within online registration. They would complete the application. And then when they were finished, they would click submit for that app, close out that window, and it would go back to online registration to complete the rest of the process for their students. We did not have an easy button for this. There's never been an easy button for the food service portion in online registration as far as the processing and having it directly interface with Infinite Campus. So we had to print those applications for the CEP program, and then we processed those in Fram and Infinite Campus. For the non-CEP schools, they were processed in the other third-party, food service program. And then we had an interface to import that data in, the meal status from that program to campus. This is something that I learned today from Laura Lohman, so I need to adjust this, and this is kind of exciting. But when Laura Lohman was speaking earlier about, and someone asked the question about being able to include the application early for the HIF form, and being able to complete that, she said that that is possible. We had always had the understanding from our food service department, they had always told us that we could not make that application available until after July 1st. But according to Laura Lohman, you can collect that data prior to July 1st. You just can't process it. So that's kind of a game changer. I'm excited about that for us. So you can disregard this information here, but in prior years, we would just redirect people to go back to complete the application. After July 1st, we would modify the links. And then how we identified people who had not completed an application once OLR applications had been, posted and early in the fall, we would use the Fram eligibility report and look for students who had a status of paid but not a type. So you would just go to, Fram eligibility, select eligibility report, meal status, all eligibility types, all certified types, do detailed, pick your school. We chose CSB, generate report, and then you will have a line that will show a student who has a paid status, but they don't have a paid type. And then if you scroll down further, you can actually identify that this is modified to not show the student's name and SSID, but it will show that they have a meal status and paid, but they have no type. So then you could contact that parent, or the schools typically, or the Family Resource Center would contact that parent to have them do an application. So in our customization starting last year in 2021 for food service, we did switch to the campus online meal application for our applications. We are a full CEP district, so this was possible. This is not an option unless you are a full CEP district. The online meal application does allow you to edit it and modify it to have, because we're full CEP, we could modify it to the HIF disclosures. My coworker Jackie worked on this part of online registration for us, getting the campus meal application ready and modified so that we can use it. Again, understanding from Laura Lohman now that it can be completed prior to July 1st. It just cannot be processed. So disregard this in my presentation. We also created a flyer to make sure that parents knew that we were changing our process on food service. And we distributed that to all of our schools, posted it in district website, social media platforms. And in the process of creating this and going to the campus online meal application, it was really important. Campus community and campus support were a great help to us in this whole process. We do not have a link directly in our online registration to the campus food service or to the campus meal application. It is a link in Campus Parent, just like you click on online registration, you click on the link for the campus meal application. This is our flyer that we created telling parents all about the process, when it was going to be available, that it was a new process, how it was going to work. And this is what our Pleat looks like for our actual food service. We have some different disclosures in here. We have the parents at this particular time, we had them sign off stating that they knew, because we open online registration early for subsequent years. Like typically we would open maybe as early as April, definitely by May. And so they would sign off acknowledging that they needed to go back to their campus parent account to complete the campus meal application. Another Pleat that we created and customized was technology. For technology, based on the first answer here, if they answer yes or no, they get different questions and answers. We included the internet access survey question, the yes or no, and then we did choose to post this to a custom tab, and then we create an ad hoc report and export that into Excel so that our technology department has access to that ad hoc report, pulls that data out, and when they need that information, they know who what the answers were to that technology question. Publication consent. We have parents answer yes or no to the media publication. We also have this posted to the custom tab so that we can easily generate an ad hoc report to mine that data out on who is yes, who is no regarding the publication. Parent guardian signature form. This has a lot of our district policies and procedures. We also include a link to our code of conduct. Parents sign off on each acknowledgement in a text box to the side. We have them type their name. And we've found that this has worked very beneficially for us. We also have a field trip permission overall disclosure here. They're still notified of individual field trips, but based on the yes or no here, we also have a report. This is posted to a custom tab so that we can ad hoc report on it. So anyone who says no, then the schools are able to contact that parent, to make sure that they answered that correctly. Sometimes parents, intended to say yes, but they said no. This is our school visitors Pleat. I'm not going to stay on that one too long. We also replicated the early childhood prior settings, questions, and information. We created that so that data is part of our online registration. This just says setting 1, but we have up to, I think, 5 settings in our online registration actual Pleat. Health services, emergency health information. We added some information here. We wanted to know if they had a hospital preference, a text box to put in their primary care physician and their phone number, emergency authorization, parent signature. We have medical health conditions. We added some additional information regarding their insurance information. Originally, we customized quite a bit in the health area, but we did realize that there were some elements and information that we're not going to post to a custom tab because of core campus programming. So we adjusted in our second year to just use the core programming and adapted our processes. So again, this is where I would really recommend that you reach out to Infinite Campus to find out what you can and cannot customize. On the medications, we have a link to our medication form and our policy so that they know they have to print this form, provide it to the school with the medication if they have a medication they need at school. We did student directory information. We did a link to a form here. So if they don't want their information released, they print this form and provide it to their schools within 30 days. And they sign and date to acknowledge terroristic threatening. I'm just going to kind of flip through some of these. We also added some customization to not just the student area, the student tab of online registration, but also parent guardian. We added some information regarding being able to contact the parent at work, yes or no question, and also migrant, the migrant form. So on the parent guardian Pleat, we have this question, can you be contacted at work, yes or no? We post that into campus, so it posts directly to their census demographics tab. We created a field there so that we can look in or look in actual campus to see if yes or no can they be contacted. We also did the migrant worker information. So if they answer yes or no to the first question, if they answer no, then it doesn't trigger additional questions. If they answer yes, it triggers the additional question of what areas have they worked in, and then they can check all that apply. We also found it very beneficial to use the OLR notifications editor. So basically this means that you can set up email and or process inbox messages for certain online registration criteria. There are several options for setup, and we chose to trigger it based when the application is submitted rather than posted, so that we know the potential that a student may have an IEP or is ELL or they're migrant when they actually submit an application. This is what the OLR notification editor looks like. You have some different options here. You can see we have several built. I'm not going to go into the detail, but this is just what it looks like where you would set that up. Also, multi-language editor is a key part of your build. This is where you would program if you were going to do online registration in a foreign language, such as Spanish. Also, each tab in Pleat needs additional review and editing because your code pulls from OLR Setup, Pleat Setup into the multi-language editor, and then you have to do some additional programming. This is where you would add your URLs, different things there. This is what the multi-language editor looks like. So you can see every area of your online registration, what you build needs to be addressed, and you have some additional editing and modification that's necessary here. We chose to also do our online registration in Spanish. So this is where you would go, you would translate everything into your Spanish version. So everything that you have your literal, which is your English, then your translation is your Spanish or the other language that you chose to convert. Custom tab, I want to just touch on that briefly. We originally started with the thought of maintaining data with a yearly custom tab, but maintaining that and programming it just was not feasible. It was too much editing. So we adjusted to just using one online registration custom tab so that we post to annually with our applications. Because we do open online registration early for the subsequent years, we choose to not post our applications. Applications are submitted by parents early as April, but we don't post those applications until starting in July, because it will override the information on our custom tab. And if you're still working in a current school year, you may not want the updated information overwritten on your tab. So just some of the ones that we do post to, we have our technology survey question, field trip release, publication consent, I didn't show our transportation pleat, but we have a transportation pleat with some key information regarding whether they're transported and how far, and we convert that to a custom tab. We ad hoc report out on it and then use that to put in the actual transportation codes for our students. We also have some emergency health data, the hospital preference that we post to the custom tab, and then we can ad hoc report on that. We build the ad hoc reports for our staff that are related to online registration and put them into appropriate groups that they have access to. Online registration data only transfers to the custom tab when the application is posted. So you need to keep that in mind when you are viewing and or mining data from via ad hoc from your custom tab. Also, highly recommend consulting with campus support regarding your customization and the use of a custom tab as it relates to online registration, so what you can and cannot do. This is just an example of what our custom tab looks like. I did take out some of the data, but this just gives you an example of some of the areas and the information that is in there that is then ad hocable. When you have a custom tab, you do have to, back in your Olr Builder, under the field that you're wanting the data, you have to go to Post Object and Post Element to have that post to the custom tab that you've created. So you have to build your custom tab first and then go back into your builder to add those fields. So implementation, annual update tips. Again, demonstrate the process to your staff as soon as possible. It helps to calm their fears, number one. Also, it gives an opportunity for you to get insight and input on the process so that you could possibly make adjustments before you go live. We also considered, we did incentives for early completion of online registration. In our initial push, we really wanted to get parents and students engaged and to get as many early applications as possible. So we offered a prize for each school. Every student that completed online registration went into a drawing to be entered to possibly receive that prize. We also worked with our district schools to schedule dates and times that computer labs would be available for families without internet or computer access. The schools scheduled those dates and times. They provided all of those dates and times to us here at the central office so that we could make ourselves available for support. I think that was a key element. Every event they had, it didn't matter if it was 6 to 8, we adjusted our hours to be able to support them in their events, and we divided and conquered to provide live phone support. We weren't able to go to every location if they have it all on the same night, but we did divide amongst ourselves and made ourselves available to answer questions for any issues or problems, resets, that kind of thing. So we also created manuals for campus parents for existing students and also for the kiosk for students who are new to the district. So those were placed at the computers or in the computer labs or wherever those were needed so that they would have a reference that showed every single screen of the online registration process, what it meant, what you enter there, and how to process through the application. Make sure that your schools have the proper links for campus parent for existing students, and then the kiosk link for those who are new to the district. Communicate the difference between, which link to use. Sometimes that causes some confusion. And then if they're using these in a computer lab or on certain devices within their building, if they have a laptop or something that's dedicated to that, make sure that they test those links every year prior to your online registration opening to ensure that they are working properly. We also go a step further and ask someone at each school to test the kiosk link to make sure that they can complete an application and there's no problems, that the pop-ups aren't blocked, there's not an issue with the browser. So they will do, basically a dummy application, complete it, they email us the app number, and then we delete it. But this helps to make sure everything's going to work smoothly. We also were fortunate enough to have a staff member that had a relationship with our local public library, and they allowed us to provide links to Campus Portal and our kiosk link on a couple of devices at the McCracken County Public Library, and we provided them with our manuals as well so that parents would have a reference for completing the app. This is just a sample email for our annual guidance to our schools, again, on creating events for online registration. Staff processing, I know we're getting close on time, so I'm going to speed through this a little bit. Staff processing is really important. We decided that our apps were going to be processed by our schools, but only posted at the district level. We created some custom statuses for processing. We have several for holds. We also have a submit to DPP for posting, a submit to DPP for denial. So what happens is our schools do process the applications, but they submit them to us for the final posting or the denial. So again, we chose to do the posting just at our district office, and then we add a couple of key additionally trained staff to do some posting for us when that time comes. We do a yearly refresher that's mandatory for our OLR staff processing access and staff. We remind staff that registration does not equal enrollment. So someone can complete an online registration application, but that does not automatically enroll the student. You still do that by student locator. Sometimes there's confusion on that. And you still have the ability to review the application for non-residents, your enrollment requirements, that kind of information. This is just shows you some of the application statuses, what it actually looks like when you're doing the approval process, and how we have those hold statuses. We also found it very beneficial to use the comments, because we do allow all of our schools, and there may be multiple students in multiple schools on an app. So we use the comments field to add information regarding that with our staff processors. And tips, I would recommend that you use campus support and campus community, as well as the KSIS KDE data standards. The data standards will give you lots of guidance as well for how to set up your online registration and your processes. Excuse me. I would also highly recommend that you use the campus supported platforms document and the campus technical documents on campus community to make sure that you know what platforms are supported, what browsers can be used, and the devices as far as OLR functionality, because there are some specifics regarding pop-ups and devices. Also, continue to collaborate on an annual basis and ask for input from admin, staff, resources, parent guardians. Be open to their insight and input to continue to finesse and make your process better. Reviewing your data and cleaning up your census will definitely help in your online registration process. Do consider some customization with campus, like importing the addresses in and using the boundary school. It was took a lot of time and a team of people to get the spreadsheet ready for campus data services, but it's really helped streamline our processes. And then lesson learned, we did need to communicate better on campus parent versus the app and the auto reset feature. Just understand census data cleanup is going to be an ongoing process. I think no matter how much you clean up, you're always going to have more to do. The email link had some downfalls for us, so we chose to not put it on our district website after the first year. people would choose that option rather than waiting for an account reset. It was a fixable issue, but it created duplicates, and it caused existing students to look like new. So we chose to take that down. No matter how much you communicate and plan, just know you're going to have some issues, and adjustments may be needed. Everything that you customize might not be available in a custom tab, so consult with support. Be diligent in your processing and the linking of your applications, because that can help you to avoid duplicates. If you're opening online registration early, just be aware that posting prior to the end of your current year could overwrite your data depending on how you've set up your custom tab. And no matter how early you open, just understand that you may have a limited percentage of applications completed early. I think every year our percentage goes up, and last year I think we may have gotten to 50%, high 40s, 50, and then we have another push. You get a big push in July and August. So you may open in April, but you may not get that large percentage of early applications that you may have hoped for. So that's just pretty much our district process. If you do have questions, please post those in Go Soapbox with the access code of KDE data. And I just thank you for allowing us to share our experience today.
Thank you, Valerie. We did have one question that kind of tags on right to how you were closing out. What percentage of your families use the online registration?
I would say 98%.
That's great. Some of the districts that started last year found that that maybe it was real, like 30% was about all they got. Do you have some recommendations?
Well, the recommendations that I would have is communicating early, really promoting your campus, the campus parent account, maybe considering incentives for completing of the online registration early. We have always had a high percentage of completion overall. Now, not necessarily early registration, but a high percentage of completion. We may even be as high as 99% because we push really hard. We work with parents. So if someone doesn't have access, working with your schools, I know it's harder in a pandemic, but having sanitized options, offering computer labs, scheduling appointments at your schools, using that as a resource, and having your schools communicate to you at the district level what those dates are, because we get a lot of calls here. So we can communicate to the parents. If they call here to our front desk, she can say, well, on April 2nd at Lone Oak Elementary, they're having a lab, call there to schedule an appointment. And they do that for our families that may not have a tablet or a device. We've even had, you have to kind of know your families and know where to push and where to stop. But we have some of our guidance counselors and our other school staff that have actually completed the online registration over the phone, to help a parent because they don't have a device, or they may not be able to read. So, you have to be adaptable to a certain point and kind of think outside of the box and work with your schools and your staff to find ways to get your parents engaged. Everyone may not be able to offer an incentive, but maybe opening, events, and then back to school events in the fall. We also have our schools provide us with those times and dates so that parents will have an opportunity, if they have not already completed, to do that. And we do provide devices to our students. So that's one thing they look at before those devices are handed out on an annual basis. They look to see if they've completed online registration, and they make them complete the online registration before the device is handed out.
It sounds like McCracken has matured in their online registration to the point where it's really their primary process.
It is.
Yeah. That's just where they push parents, and there will always be exceptions to every rule. But it's not about you can do that. You can choose this or this. It's about let's get you through the online registration process.
Right, and we've promoted it that there really isn't an option. We don't promote. Which we're certainly adaptable, but we promoted it from the very beginning as, using your campus parent account if you're an existing student, or using the kiosk. And, so that was part of our public relations early on, is just communicating it as an online process.
Right. We've got a couple questions. One of them is somebody's asked if you can share your ad hoc settings to show duplicate households for cleanup purposes. And they could probably reach out directly to you for that information.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And there are some SQL queries that are on Campus Community, and some of those, and those are very beneficial. That's part of what we copied from. So there's some great resources there without having to reinvent the wheel. But certainly feel free to contact me, reach out to me by email, and I'll be happy to share some screenshots of some of the others that we had as well.
Great. So for OLR, are there documents that are required a parent signature that you had parents sign, or were all those documents taken care of with the checkoff list that they saw that was used?
So you have options on how you do this. You can choose an electronic signature and have that included within your online registration setup. How we chose to do it originally was through having those acknowledgement boxes and the date for them acknowledging each policy. So it's really going to be your choice on how you want to have that set up. We chose to not use the electronic signature on anything other than the campus meal application, but we're continuing to adapt and adjust. And so we may change that as we move forward, but we found it simple to just do the disclosures and have them acknowledged after each one. So that's really your preference on how you want to do it.
Right. So I think this is more of a comment than a question. It says we built our emergency card into online registration, so students are not allowed to go on field trips until we have online registration complete. We also took hotspots and Chromebooks to certain neighborhoods that we had trouble getting the apps completed. So that's a suggestion from another district.
Yes. Yeah, and we also, I didn't mention that, but we also have hotspots, and we have certain individuals that sometimes make home visits and different things. So they have a device with the links so that they can assist those families as well. Right.
There was a question more for me. I did answer it in here about KDE continuing to pay for online registration beyond 21-22 school year. We've requested that with some of the ESSER money. I don't want to give anybody any hope that we're going to pay for it forever, but with some of the ESSER money, there is funding available either at the state level or at the local level, because a lot of the KDE ESSER money has been pushed out to districts. So to continue this on with funding that hasn't been available in the past. So keep that in mind as you're planning locally. So I think that's all of the questions we have, Valerie. We really want to thank you again for being our guest speaker today and going through your process in McCracken County.